Hi, I'm Jeremy, and today's guest on Founder at 50 is Tami Arnowitz, founder of Good Questions Consulting. Tami is a strategist and coach helping Jewish organizations build strong teams and solve tough challenges. But Tami didn't start her career as a consultant or anywhere close to it. She started out on Wall Street and then spent time as a product manager for household brands. And she's got an MBA from Columbia, and she's written the children's book, and she's done real estate. In our conversation, Tami shares what it means to reshape your career again and again, not out of confusion, but with intention and curiosity. She talks about finding agency as a working mother, asking the right questions to unlock growth, and how the right kind of why not thinking can launch a business you love. We also explore how she uses coaching, storytelling, and even AI tools to expand her reach and impact in a sector she's deeply connected to. If you're wondering how to bring meaning into your work or have dabbled with reinventing yourself, Tami's story is full of practical insights and real warmth. Oh, and one more thing, Tami and I have been close friends for over 30 years. Let's go. Tami, how are you doing today?
I'm great. It's a beautiful
Awesome.
day, so I enjoy that.
It's so nice to have you here after we've only known each other, how long has it been?
30 years?
Something like that.
Almost?
So Tami and I met, you were a freshman or a sophomore?
Freshman.
All right.
First year, technically, actually.
So we're going to incorporate into your story, since we get it, a little briefest thing ever. What did you go into school studying? What did you graduate with?
Actually, the exact same thing. I went into school to be an econ major, and I was an econ major. I had a brief thought along the way that I might add art history as a minor or maybe even a major. I loved it. And my father was like, what's the point of that? And that was sort of the end of that. I just took classes because I liked it.
Yeah, as a parent, I'm definitely like, art history is a great minor.
Yeah.
Lovely minor. It's a wonderful 18th century French poetry. Great minor. I love it. Okay, so you graduated as an economist, and then you quickly became an
I graduated as
economist.
someone who liked econ. I actually had friends who were economists, so I'm careful with that term. I have several friends who I was in college with who went on to become PhDs in economics. Those are economists. I loved that econ explained the way that the world worked when you would see supply and demand, or the way that money moved through the system, or that it could just explain why businesses did what they did most of the time, not the grand theory. I'm much more into the doing.
By the way, very similar econ major myself, if I haven't talked about that. And the thing I tell all parents, if your kids have no idea what they should study, send them through econ. They'll learn how everything works. It's the basic thing of it. But I said that you were an economist a little facetiously because I know you didn't go off and do that. So tell us what you did do and why you chose to do that.
So when I first got out of college, it was 1999, and there was basically a couple of industries that were sort of booming and kind of the places to be. The tech world, and I was not going off to California, which is where a lot of that was happening, and I really didn't have that much interest in tech. And then consulting, I did not really want the lifestyle of a consultant. An early consultant, at least in the 90s, was like, we'll send, and they were promoting it as awesome. We'll send you someplace for a week and then you can go travel from there. And I was like, I'm just getting married. I don't want to be somewhere else for a week. And I was about to go live in New York City, which was about one of the coolest places you could go, much more than Topeka, Kansas. Not anything against Kansas, but I didn't want to leave New York City every week. And then investment banking and finance was sort of the third. And as an econ major, that seemed like a good match. I went into marketing for asset management, and I really enjoyed helping other people understand their financial models and financial instruments in a way that they could process. To me, that was the best part of the marketing, right? Visuals and language and finding ways to make complicated things a little bit simpler.
And how long did you do that for?
I did that for 2 years. Then we went to Israel for a year. Jeff's my husband, your best friend. He was studying in rabbinical school. He was going for a year in Israel. So I went along as well. Actually, it was great. We, took a year to live internationally. I came back with the plan of going to business school. I should take a step back and say, when I was at Wellesley, one day I went to the career services office to think about what do I want to do. And I, old school, there were books, a day in the life of, and you could kind of go through it and read each one. And the one that I really found interesting was product management.
Okay.
But all of the information I could find said that in order to be a product manager, you needed an MBA. And in order to get an MBA, you need work experience. And so everything before my MBA was really just like, let me get a little bit of work experience so I can go get the MBA so I can do what I really want to do.
I want to just frame that very well for a sec. So you've come out of school, you have this inkling toward product management. So you're basically immediately taking steps to get to that goal.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. And did you get to that goal?
I did. After the 2 years at Lazard and then Israel and then one more year at Lord Abbett, which was in the same sort of position, I went to Columbia Business School with the whole idea of wanting to go into product management.
Okay. So now you're coming out of business school.
Yeah.
You've got a vision.
Yes.
What happened to the vision?
I did it for a while. So I got the job through networking. I actually had the job before I graduated. I did it as an internship my summer, and it was great. It was everything I wanted it to be. I did it for 5 years.
Well, did you have one product that you were responsible for, or an aspect of a product?
So I started off helping launch a line of sexual protection products and some other more fun ones aimed towards women under the Trojan line. So that was the original thing. Then I moved into Trojan proper. Then I moved to a set of products that they pulled together under one heading, which was basically things that threw off profit but weren't really going to get a lot of spending. So it was kind of a joint sales and marketing team. And then I moved to baby Oragel and adult Oragel and a bunch of other products. And this was me moving up each time. So I was an assistant product manager, then I was an associate product manager, and then I got promoted to product manager with my own line, which was the Simply Saline, like saline nasal products line. And I loved doing product management. It was everything I wanted it to be. It was interesting. The days were varied. The work was varied. I could be in one meeting talking about a PR campaign, very creative. And then in the next meeting, like line item by line item, going through a P&L or like trying to cut costs or things like that. It was exactly what I wanted it to do. The reason I wanted to get there, I was getting to live out every day. I was very happy.
I want to sort of check in here. You're living this life at this point where expectations are actually meeting reality and each other. Did you have an aspiration of where that journey was to take you, or were you just enjoying that journey as it went?
No, I mean, I was enjoying getting more responsibility. I don't think I thought much beyond that. I also had a young family, and the biggest issue there was that my work was an hour away from where we lived, and that's a lot.
It is. So you mentioned small family. For those listening or watching, the Arnowitz family has 4 kids. So the small family is a little, I think it's small from like a biblical times perspective. Small.
No, I said a young family at the time, and it was only 3, and then it became 4. But yes, I mean, it was a lot.
So I don't want to go too deep into the working mother discussion because I know that it's a huge topic and it affects everybody so differently, and it's such a big deal. For you, though, did you have a clear line in your head, or was it something you always wrestled with back and forth?
I was always working. I always planned to work. We employed what I called a third grown-up who would help us in the afternoons. Because babysitter isn't quite right because she did more than that, and nanny isn't quite right because she did less than the standard nanny. But I just needed somebody home because my husband is often not home in the evenings, and like, you can't come home from a full day of work and have all these children and just be you by I mean, you can, people do it, but like, I used to joke and say, like, I can't both safely wash a baby in a bathtub and help a 7-year-old with math homework. You can't. It's not possible. So.
Although you got a lot more fingers and toes to count on when you do it that way.
I always wanted to work because a big sense of part of who I am is the professional life. No judgment on any other choices. As my kids got older and their needs differed, having flexibility became more and more important. And that plays out in some of the choices I make later in the career process. But I never said, I personally never got to a point where I was like, I'm just not going to work.
Okay. So you're at the product role. Yes. And you've taken on new things. It's not just condoms. Now it's saline. Very exciting. A lot of fluid related products in your world. What happened next?
That was job 2, right? So there was the career style 2. Let's say it was the marketing associate in finance or asset management, into product management. My husband got a different job, and a job that we were excited about for our family as a whole, but it was leaving the area. And so I had to find something else to do. So this is like one of these stories about the power of networking. When I first got out of college, I was so certain I was just going to find my job on my own, which by the way, I did, but it was whatever. It was a fine job. I went to the chief marketing officer of the company that I worked at and said, I'm moving. I have to resign. I'm moving. He said, oh, where are you moving to? We talked about it. He goes, I have a buddy from business school who is sort of holding the job of CEO of a company down there. Want me to introduce you? Yes, please. So he introduced me. I spoke to this guy on the phone. He's like, I want you to come work for me. Okay, doing what? He's like, I don't even know yet. You're coming down. There's not a lot of Columbia Business School MBAs down here. He's like, I want you to come work for me. We'll figure it out. Okay. So I did. I had a requirement. I said, I want Fridays off, because that became a thing that like Fridays were really, really hard for me for getting home for Shabbat, which, depending on the time of year, can be very early. So
Yeah,
I negotiated
you get to February and Shabbat starts at like 1 p.m.
December. It's like insane. It's insane. I negotiated a 4-day work week. That was sort of the first time I ever said, like, I have some power here. Let me use that. And I went to work for him. That was at a career education company, meaning like they had, 2-year or less schools, technical schools. You might be training to be a automotive tech or a nurse.
Vocational trades.
Yeah, vocational training. Exactly.
And what was your role? What were you doing for them?
I started off in a kind of marketing role that I was helping. They actually had a whole cosmetology department in their schools, and the spas brought in customers. And so we were doing marketing for that, as well as marketing for the schools themselves to try and help them with their materials to get new students, whether it was open houses, things like that. Then at some point, I got transitioned more into general marketing and some regulatory work because I had some background actually in dealing with regulations. Then I got transitioned into actually my favorite project there, which was trying to do a strategic look at what kinds of courses we should be offering and allowing it to change based on the location. So, for example, in certain parts of North Carolina, boat maintenance is a really important thing, but not so much in parts of Pennsylvania where there is like, no open water. And so I did a lot of work in sort of the demographics and the job markets, and we had all kinds of cool algorithms to start to pick out what types of programs might be interesting and successful that were not standard across the whole company. That was my favorite.
And so how long were you with this company?
3 years.
Okay.
We moved to Virginia in 2011.
So you're in your 30s, you're in Virginia, you're working, you've got 5 jobs, 3 years. Was a destination starting to show up in mind?
I had no destination. I definitely knew that I was doing this because it worked. Like, it was convenient. I had 4 days a week. It was paying me well. I did not love the work. The CEO that hired me got fired at one point. Literally in the time that I was there, they had 3 CEOs. Went through the entire executive team. I had 3 different bosses. I mean, they kept changing my job. The result of that time is what made me decide that I wanted more control over my professional life, because I was at the whim of whoever was in charge at that moment. I was working on a great project. And they're like, oh yeah, we're not so interested in that anymore. Let's just wrap that up. And then like it was just crazy. I was on maternity leave. I came back. I had a totally different boss, a totally different job. Then they moved the company, but it was just a mess. It was not great. So I decided I needed more control over my career. That's the biggest turning point, is that up until that point, I was pretty happy working for someone and having them tell me what to do. I liked the product management work way better, but at that point in my life, making a salary and working 4 days a week was fine. I was like, it's fine. I didn't need that much fulfillment professional. But I got so frustrated and sort of the kicker at the end was at one point they came to me for a project to do market research. Now, I happen to love market research. I find it so fun. And I was like, great. And they were trying to get information from the faculty. And I started discussing it. They're like, oh, no. The chief education officer already wrote the survey. We just want you to write it and copy it into SurveyMonkey for us. And I was like, I have a Columbia MBA. I have worked in market research for 5 years. This is how you want me spending my time? And I was like, I've got to find something else. I've got to find something else. This is not working. I mean, I was happy. They paid me a lot of money to do nothing, but it was like demeaning. It's not even that, it was demoralizing. That's the right.
Sure.
It was
Command C, Command V doesn't take you too far.
no, and it was, and then they didn't even want me to analyze the data. I was like, okay, no, nothing.
What did you do at that stage? Did you have a process? How did you figure out
What
what
to
you
do
would
next?
then do?
I started calling people and networking
Okay.
because I thought the best way to find out what else was around, I didn't really know what my other options were that were nearby. And remote work was really not a thing. This is 2013. Like maybe in tech it was a thing, but in most industries it was not really a thing.
Sure. So you were optimizing for agency. At the time, was that more important than compensation, for
Yep.
example?
It
Okay.
was the most important thing at that moment because I
So
had
where
been
did
burned.
where
I called someone who was a member of our community and was very involved in the business world. And I told him what was going on, that I was looking for a new opportunity and that what I wanted. And he was amazing. Don't tell me what you're good at. Tell me what you want to be able to do. What is important to you? And so I said to him, like, I want to be able to control my own work, control my own schedule, and make a decent salary that'll cover my kids' private school education.
Okay.
That was it. He's like, great. I have a mortgage company. Want to come work for me? I was like,
Okay.
I've never been in mortgages. He's like, no problem. I think that you can learn. And in fact, I'm going to use you as my guinea pig because right now my company insists that they only hire people who have background in mortgages. And I think they're wrong. If we hire smart people, they can get good at this quickly and be successful. And I want you to be my guinea pig. I was like, okay. There was a little bit of hesitancy back when I first started there. I think that there was, they knew that I was the owner's guinea pig.
Right.
But I proved the concept pretty well. I can be warm and charming when I want to be. So people came to like me personally, and they no longer just viewed me as his guinea pig. And that worked well for a while. I certainly had more control. It was like having your own business, but with the support of an IT department and a marketing department. You controlled how much effort you put in, what kinds of ideas you had. But if you wanted to create a flyer, you could be like, hey, marketing department, can you make me a flyer that says this? And that was convenient and a nice sort of stepping stone probably on the way to being like a full-on entrepreneur of my very own.
How long did you stay?
I was in mortgages in Virginia for 5 years.
Okay. And so that'll take us to right before the pandemic, which you've now gone through some very different sectors. The truth is, not only did your job change, the vertical sector category also massively changed.
That's why I say I've reinvented myself over and over again.
So this is your fourth career reinvention. Did you have any personal process, or you land in a situation and you just start figuring things out?
In most cases, I just figure it out. I mean, I like research, right? So when I get someplace new, I try and do what I can to learn what I need to know. Sometimes there's been people who have guided me along the way, and sometimes there hasn't.
Tami, you made a comment earlier about you can be warm when you want to. I think it's more like you can try to be cold when you want to, is really who you are, but we won't go too far down that path. A lot of people go through career changes. Not as many people go through as many, nor such different verticals. Like I'm in a different thing now, but it's all around like media and tech, which has been my thing, right? Augie is at the creation side instead of the consumption side, but it still left me with so much reusable knowledge. What advice would you give to someone who's going through that same, I might have to go do something totally different in life? What would be one or two things that you might want them to know or think about as they're going?
So each time I moved to a different industry, I moved for a reason that is important to me. The reasons differed a lot, but it made it such that even as I was struggling when I did, I was like, but this is worth it because, right? Because I want to do this, because it gives me the flexibility, or because it gives me the control, or because it brings me into an industry that I've been wanting to get to this whole time. Each time there was a motivating factor to get you over the hard parts.
Would you characterize yourself as someone who has strong intrinsic, internally driven motivation, or is it more extrinsic?
Intrinsic, for sure.
So do you ever have a trouble with that? Or do you ever struggle with personally motivating yourself to do a thing? Or are you able to just turn that switch on when you need?
I probably have the opposite problem. I have trouble not doing things. And there are a lot of things that I'm responsible for. So there are a lot of things I have to do. I want to get more done. I want to be a success. I am a perfectionist. I hold myself to a very high standard. I have a very specific internal view of what it means to be successful. And so I drive myself towards that all the time. I know that what I do sometimes is I move too fast. I hear a problem, whether it's something I'm trying to solve for my kids or something for my life or my work or whatever. I'll be like, okay, I'm on it. I once had somebody joke with me. They're like, wait, you were told this yesterday and this is the solution you already have? I was like, yeah, because I just, like something happens and I'm like, take out my phone. I'm like, what do I need to do for that? Like, so sometimes it is better, I know, to stop and take some stock and to think through options before you just start going. But my drive to fix and make things happen, just go, get it done. Come on. I think that's probably the biggest issue of that.
You're now 5 years into doing mortgage stuff, for lack of better words. Were you loving the space? Again, I want to find out where there's ever a point where you're like, I'm just going to do mortgages forever. And then obviously you don't, but I'm curious.
That is accurate. That is accurate. I don't know if we're jumping ahead too much, but I will tell you that the work I'm doing now is the first time I've really enjoyed my work since I left product management, which was in 2011. Okay.
So 2018, you guys move to the New York suburbs, COVID hits. What happens next professionally?
My original plan when we moved was to take advantage of the fact that New York City had so much more industry and find something that was closer into something I would really feel passionate about. But then COVID hit. So instead I kept doing mortgages for a while because that's what I knew how to do. I could do it remotely. I could make a bunch of money on the refi market. And so I did that for another couple years. And then I tried to find a place in New York and I did that, but I just wasn't loving it. There were so many things. The things that had bothered me about it in Virginia got worse.
Okay.
For me personally. The market got worse. So it was harder to like make money in it. And I used to say, like, I went into mortgages because it gave me control over my schedule and allowed me to still make a nice salary and was interesting enough. And it had gotten to the point where it wasn't interesting. I wasn't making a nice salary because the market was too hard. So all it did was give me control over my schedule. I was like, you know what also gives me control over my schedule? Not working at all. That was the only moment I was like, maybe I just shouldn't work at all because like this is all that's going for it. Instead, I started thinking about what I really wanted to do, which actually you were very involved with because we talked about it a lot. Like all these ideas of consulting and using this very interesting background. And, I say now, back when I was in product management and we would have consultants come in, they would tell you this story of this sort of meandering path of their different things in their background that makes it so it makes the most sense that this is now what they're doing in consulting
Sure.
on. And I was like, I feel like I have this weird meandering path. How can I make use of that to be that interesting consultant? I did a couple different things. I thought about going into more marketing consulting because that's what my background was in. That's what I sort of concentrated in my MBA. And so I did a project for free for someone, really just to kind of get my feet wet in it again. And it was fine, but I was surprised and a little disappointed to figure out I didn't love it.
Okay.
It didn't have as much meaning for me as I thought it would.
Was it a feeling you once had that just didn't show up this time around? Or was it a feeling that you never quite had that you were questing for?
It became more important to me to be working on something that I was passionate about and not just the style of work that I liked.
Got it. So you're reaching this phase, which what many people do, where the work and the meaning start needing to be more aligned.
Right. And the truth is, like, the products I worked in at Church and Dwight when I was a product manager, like, a lot of them I really did believe in. I mean, at the time I had a baby. So Baby Oragel, I was like, this thing is a lifesaver, Managed at the time to really believe in the products. But when you're a consultant, you don't have as much choice over the kinds of products you're working on.
Right.
And it became clear to me that really believing in what I was doing was important to me and not just the style of work.
Okay. So what'd you do with that?
Took a little while to get there. I eventually came to this idea of the fact that I like to help and give advice. And I think that this meandering path of experience exposed me to a lot of different ways that businesses run, some well, some not as well, because I had experience with both. And I wanted to be able to use all of that to help organizations that were doing things that I did truly believe in, that I felt passionate about their work, and help them to improve. And that really brought me to this idea of working with Jewish nonprofits, Jewish organizations, and helping them use some of these business strategies and tactics that they very often don't, because they don't have anyone coming from that background. I mean, most of the time you go into Jewish nonprofit work because you believe in the Jewish community and helping, and you don't have an MBA, you don't have experience working in the for-profit world. And so you might not know what is the best practice options for, let's say, a performance management process, right? Or how not to just keep grandfathering in processes because that's what we always did, right? Like in a for-profit business, most of the time you don't do that.
Your vision was to bring all of the knowledge you've accumulated over the years and product and marketing, even in mortgage work, to the nonprofit sector, which in general always needs our help, and we all know that. But yours obviously toward where your personal interests lie.
One other thing, it's not only where my personal interests lie, it's that understanding how synagogues work and Jewish nonprofits work, what's important and all of that, like that is understanding a world that you need to understand in order to be able to give good advice. Too often consultants come in and they like talk to people for a week, a month, or whatever, but they miss huge pieces of the culture or the background or just an innate understanding of how the community works. And because I have been so involved in my personal life and my volunteer life in the Jewish world, I really do understand how to put those things together.
Got it. Okay. So you've got this deep understanding, not only of what this sector needs, but probably how to do most of those things. There's a big difference between knowing what could be done, what should be done, what might be done, and starting a thing, and then that thing actually taking root and it actually starting to happen.
I continue to adapt. I originally thought it was going to be mostly about coaching and teaching.
Okay, so you started a company, you started doing some work, taking on projects in this space, and then what'd you do with it?
So I started really focusing on finding teaching roles, like one time kind of things, like going into a JCC and teaching with classes I had built over the years from some other work I had done, and looking for coaching. So one-on-one coaching with either clergy or clergy spouses or lay leaders or things like that.
Were you at all nervous about saying, hey, I'm doing this coaching thing, and you've never really actually done it before? Like,
oh my God, so nervous. Like, oh my God, so nervous. Like, you're like, who the hell am I? But then I started doing it and I was like, I'm really good at this. Like, this is like part of what happened was that like I used to sort of coach people just without getting paid for it. I would do it with my friends and with my spouse. I was figuring it out. And I sat with somebody today who I met at a conference and he wanted to get my take on something. And he's like, I have these ideas and you're so entrepreneurial, which I found so funny because I guess it's a spectrum because I think of you as so entrepreneurial, right? I'm like, I'm not entrepreneurial. So I started off with like buying coaching leads of just random coaching. And then it was like over that process that I thought, this is hard. And as much as I'm good at coaching here, I really have this niche that I want to explore. And so then I started really looking into that. I think the moment where it snowballed and really started was when I ran into someone I knew from our very first community when Jeff became a rabbi. And I was telling her the kinds of thing I was doing. And she asked me if I could come do it in her organization for 15 individuals over a 3-month period with multiple coaching sessions and helping them develop, each of them develop. And I was like, yes, of course I can do that. But I was like, woo, this is a real job now, right? Like it was real money and it was real people and a lot of them. And it was great. And I was good at it. When I tell people what I do broadly, I say, if a Jewish organization has something they want to achieve that they're not quite sure how to get there, I'm a great person to talk to, except I don't do budgeting because I don't really like it. So I'm not interested in doing it. I don't do fundraising because my background in the for-profit world gives you zero experience because we don't raise money. We just make money by selling things. So like, I don't do those two things. But other than that, if you want to talk about market research or rabbinic transition or about organization of your office or about the performance management process or about, like how to maintain some sustainability of like self-care amidst the crazy synagogue schedule, like any of those things, I can do that stuff. And like people will come to me and be like, can you do this? And I'm like, oh yes I can. There's only been one or two things people have come to me and said like, would you help us with this? And I'd say, I'm not the right person. There was one of them was like conflict resolution. It's like, that's not really my background. And like, I don't ever want to present myself as good at something that I don't really think I'll be good at, both because my brand will suffer and because it's dishonest.
So for the people out there who might have some similarities in that they know a space or a category very well, maybe they're tired of their job. A lot of people, especially today, want to go hang out their shingles, go whether it's where you sort of started around life coaching all the way to just general business, better practice, better management. And I think a lot of people end up sitting sort of on the fence for a long time. You are not one to sit on the fence for a long time. What might be a way of thinking you might impart upon someone who's in the shoes you were in, but doesn't quite have the somebody to push them off and say, just try, just get started? What might be a starting point you give someone?
Yeah, it's the oh well philosophy, right? Like
Go on.
it's the you give something a try, and if it doesn't work, you're like, "Oh well, that didn't work," right? So like buying leads for me, I spent, I don't know, probably a couple hundred in the high couple $100 maybe on buying leads before I was like, I don't think this is working. And there's that moment you're like, "Oh no, I messed it up and now it'll never work." And you're like, "Nope. Well, that didn't work. What's next?" Right? And it's just that continual like brainstorming. I read all different kinds of books. I like I said, I kind of like research. So I got an idea from one of the books that was I love this idea. Actually, this is something I just recommended to this person I met with today who's trying to start a business. This like you're trying to build you have a network, but your network isn't always well aligned with what you want to do, but you never know who they know, right? So I did one of these like free 20-minute consultations on these topics, and sent that out to people I know and asked them to share it with their networks. And of course that gives you two things. It gives you maybe even three things. It gives you an opportunity to expand your network. It gives you an opportunity for people who are sort of looking for your kind of help to come to you that you might not have otherwise known. That gives you the opportunity to do some research in the kinds of things people are looking for so that you can make sure that you are going to be well qualified in those things. Or if you're not, know that you're not, but know what kinds of things people in this space you want to play in need, and maybe allows you to turn it into business. Because you're like, great, I'm glad I could help you in these 20 minutes. It sounds like there's still a lot more to do. Do you want to talk about expanding my help with you? Right. And that was great. That was so great. And not a lot of people took me up on it, but some did. And then it was just brainstorming, like, where else can I find people who might want to speak to me about this?
So Tammy, for now that you've evolved it,
Yes.
tell us, what exactly are you actually doing now? What is the name of your business? But I want the elevator pitch version. Like we're at a conference, we're stuck in the food line or something.
Yes.
What is it that you do?
So I have a company called Good Questions Consulting where I help Jewish communal organizations help them by figuring out what their challenges are, how to find their opportunities and explore them.
And how much do you love doing that?
Oh my God, I love it so much. It is the best thing that I've done, maybe ever, but at least certainly since product management. It allows me to help people and like these light bulbs. I love the light bulb moments, right? It's called Good Questions because I like to ask questions that lead to light bulb moments, right? These ahas. And I'll see it when I'll ask somebody because that's where the coaching comes in. I love the combination, right? I went and got the life coaching certification because it helps me to ask even better questions. Because the truth is, and this is my thing with consulting in general, I don't necessarily know better than my client does. They know their organization better than I ever can because they live it day to day, but they're in it, right?
Right.
And I ask the question and I ask the next question, I ask the next question until suddenly this idea comes to both of us, or maybe to me, but it's this like, oh, and I love that. And the ability to see that happening in these organizations that are in a space in which I am passionate is just great. When I work with even like one-on-one, I do still do one-on-one coaching with people within these Jewish communal organizations. When I hear them say like, "Oh, that's a good idea," like it's great. It makes me so happy. It just makes me so happy.
I love that. And
Yeah.
so, Tammy, what does success look like now? I mean, you're doing something you love. You're working with people you tend to love and on things you tend to love. How do you actually define success, if at all?
So there's probably two pieces to it. One of them will always be, because this is deeply ingrained in me, is it making money? Like I feel a certain sense that the worth is based partly in the fact that people will pay me to do it.
Do you have a financial target? Does Good Questions do you must make a certain number of dollars per year to be happy, or is just that
No,
there's some?
I just like seeing it grow.
Okay.
So, I was really excited because I was doing some of my recent calculations for May into June, and I've made as much this year already as I made all of last year. And I was
Mazel
like,
tov.
that's awesome. And I know because I already have contracts for scopes of work signed that start in August, like I know there's more money coming. So that's a really exciting moment. And I need that's really fun for me.
Great. And the second thing?
The second part is knowing that people are starting to come to me who don't necessarily know me personally, right?
Mm.
That I've gotten through conferences and webinars I've done, or through the grapevine or whatever, synagogues and organizations coming to me because they've seen me or heard of me and want my help. And that feels like, okay, now it's not just, people I know doing me a favor or me doing them a favor because, not charging that very much in the beginning, right? And that feels like a success as well,
Do
right?
you
That
still feel imposter syndrome?
a lot less. I think I
I mean,
have
we all
actually
do. I mean, in the quiet moments of everybody has it. So it's not a bad thing.
actually find the imposter syndrome is sort of in my head until I get into the meat of it, and then it goes away. So, like, for example, I'm doing a convention coming up, and I was doing the work on it, and I finished the presentation a little while ago, and I went back to review it because I'm doing some training on it this evening, actually. And I went on to review the presentation. Oh my God, this is great stuff. This is great stuff. This is gonna be really helpful for people. A person I worked with once who said, you only have to be one chapter ahead of whoever you're helping. And I remember thinking, that's not true. You should be the expert. And then I realized, no, that works. If you are good at being one chapter ahead and, or having read the book and being like, even if I just read the book and now I can help you understand it, the truth is that's so similar to what I liked from my first very marketing associate job, that I was taking these complicated financial, instruments and then explaining them through marketing speak to the clients. And that's not so different than what I'm doing with management techniques or any of these things, transition planning, succession planning, change stewardship. That's what I'm doing. I'm taking things that are complicated and making it easier for people to understand.
I love that summary of it. Given how much change is going on in the business world today, I'm curious, Tami, and on whatever scale you want to define it, is AI already playing a role in your work, whether it's what you're doing or what your clients are doing? Is it daily happening? Where's AI for you?
So I don't know about most of my clients. I think that most synagogues are on the whole not using a lot of AI, or Jewish communal organizations. So you turned me on to ChatGPT and I was like, that's not useful. But I have found it to be useful for a couple things. One, I'm using it at I acknowledge, I'm using it like the lowest level of usefulness. I know that. And for the things I use it for, I'm like, oh, this is convenient. So like I had to write a snappy title that was used matrix references for a proposal for a convention. I mean, I saw the matrix, but it's a while ago. I was like, I don't know. So I took the summary of what I was writing, my original plan of what I want to present, and I put it into ChatGPT and I was like, give me a couple title options that make a reference to the matrix and also rewrite this with a few references to the matrix. And like it was like, and it gave me a couple things. I was like, great. Because the work I would have had to do to like go figure that out, they just wouldn't have been as good and it would have taken a lot more time.
Was there anything about the red pills kosher?
No, but there were definitely things about the red pills. I don't think in the end I used the red pills one, but I did not, like, I didn't remember the Matrix. I remember a couple scenes,
I mean,
and
I think it was that, or there's two spoons, one for Milk and one for me, because there's no spoon thing. But
oh,
we'll
no,
go with
yeah, I
that.
didn't do any of that.
So you're using ChatGPT for a lot of things. Are you using any other AI tech at this point? Have you generated an image for anything? What else have you might be trying
No,
out?
I didn't do an image, but I did use Augie. I was one of those like
Hey,
early users, and I made a whole bunch of videos that I put on my website, most of them under like the premium content section, so that like for concepts I wanted to get across, and I just thought it makes it look more professional. So I created a couple of those, also not specifically within my business, but I wrote a children's book. And really you helped me, but we used AI to create sort of a reader version of it. So I've done that. And I used ChatGPT for some editing. awesome.
Okay. So, Tammy, you've had an amazing journey. I think you say 5 career stops along the way. In a weird way, I think that there are a couple others in there. But before we completely wrap up, where do you want to send people, whether it's your website, any organizations you're involved with, anything that you want people to check out or know about because Tammy sent you?
I would love for people to visit my website. It's gq-coaching.com. They'll get to know a little more about me. They can actually see some of the content I referenced, although for the premium, you need the access code. And I would love for people to take a look at my blog. One of these things that I do that's not exactly connected to my work, but I find it really fun and I enjoy it, and I hope other people will as well, is that every week I do something called Parsha Inspired Menus, where I find something from the Torah reading that's interesting and that will allow people to connect to the reading for the week from the Torah, from the Bible, through food. And I think it's really fun. And I would love for people to read those blogs just because it makes me happy when people tell me that they do.
Well, thank you, Tammy, so much for being on the podcast today. Thank you for being my friend for 30 plus years. One other plug, Tammy has written a book called The Challah Fairy. If you like challah, it's also got a great recipe in it. I can personally vouch for that. But overall, Tammy, it was a real pleasure. And thank you for sharing your journey with us.
It is absolutely my pleasure. I feel so honored to be part of it. Thank you.